If you want to be an apostle of mercy, we have all around us very great lack of mercy. And it's called abortion. It's the killing of an innocent child. That's an awful, abominable attack on mercy. It's the most unmerciful thing in our society. I was very grateful to God a few years ago when the state of New York stopped giving people who were condemned to death. They weren't actually killed, but Sing Sing. They were not executed. But that was a couple of people a year. Think of the millions of innocent people in the United States who have been killed by abortion. And it's done by nice people. Oh yeah, sure. There may be some nice people here. Sorry to say that they deeply regret that they may have had an abortion. We know other people who do it. You may have a doctor living on your street, a nurse, someone works at an office where abortion is done. What an incredible, merciless thing. Now, I was reading today the writings about Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood. If you knew that Mrs. Sanger, who was an ex-Catholic, by the way, that she was hooked up with the Nazis way back in the 30s, moving the movement of Planned Parenthood. It was not respectable in those days. And here's a quotation that Margaret Sanger said. The first step to control the intake and output of morons, mental defectives, and epilecs. The second step would be to take an inventory of the secondary group, illiterates, paupers, unemployables, criminals, prostitutes, drug users. Classify them in special departments under medical governmental protection, segregate them on farms and open spaces as long as necessary for strengthening their development. Imagine the immense number of people. What is she talking about? She's talking a police state. And she was a supporter of Adolf Hitler. Do you know that? Explicitly. She spoke in favor of Hitler. Now, I want you to know this about Planned Parenthood. Most of them are very nice people. They never even heard this about Margaret Sanger. They probably heard her name. She's something of a heroine of that movement. But this is something you can get right on your email, www.spectacle.org 997. And you'll pull that up and you get all the stuff. I'll read it over. www.spectacle.org line 997 line. And it says the word Richmond. I don't know why. Now, you need to be informed of this, that this movement, which is called Eugenics, it was begun by Charles Darwin, who was the man who came to the theory that human beings evolved from apes and down the line. And Darwin, of course, was an atheist. He was a pure materialist. And these people were pure materialists, that a human being is simply an animal which is expendable. But that thinking comes into American life. I'm sorry to tell you, there are Protestant ministers outspoken in favor of Planned Parenthood. Do you know that? Yes. This is incomprehensible in keeping this with the divine law, with the Old Testament, the New Testament, but especially a direct attack on the teaching of our divine Savior, who is the Lord of mercy. Right? Can you imagine anything more merciless than killing an unborn child simply because the child is in the way? That was the basic philosophy of the Nazis, and lots of other people too. Hitler's idea was every human being is subject to the state, and if they're in the way of the state, they should be killed. They should be killed. And this is particularly that they went after the Jews. And Margaret Sanger was anti-Semitic. She was also anti-Catholic, deeply anti-Catholic. But in your neighborhood, you may see a nice office that says, with nice people going in and out, it says Planned Parenthood. And they're nice people. They think they're doing something good for society. And they are not doing anything for society, I assure you. And this should be known and said. Now, I'm not suggesting you start picketing Planned Parenthood. That's not going to accomplish anything. What you need to do is talk to people who are influenced by Planned Parenthood. And even maybe perhaps you may know someone, some of you do, who work for Planned Parenthood. Look into its background. Eugenics, Margaret Sanger, Adolf Hitler, the whole mess. And just ask yourself, how can anyone justify, in the light of the divine law, of universal morality, the teaching of the Old Testament, of the commandments, the special teaching of the New Testament, and most of all, our divine Savior? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Now, this sort of shakes up our beautiful day today on mercy, and I didn't want to do that. It's a beautiful, beautiful topic. I love to hear about it. I'm from Jersey City, and I want to get all the mercy I can get. Let me tell you, we had a great deal of desire for mercy, and it was the places that needed it. But even in beautiful Westchester, there is needed mercy. Throughout the world, there is the need for mercy. In the vast populations of the world, people who have the call of God in their heart, ultimately every human being does. Every conscious thinking human being, sooner or later, God knocks on the heart of everyone. And even though they do not know his name, Christ calls to them. Otherwise, they would not have any hope of salvation. And surely the Holy Fathers in recent years have talked to us, Pope Benedict, about the possibility of the salvation of many people who don't simply know about the gospel, who have not been able to be baptized. God is a God of mercy. But we need to be the witnesses of mercy. In your neighborhood, in your parish, in your job, where you go, let you be seen as a person of mercy. That you show mercy to the very poor, physically poor and materially poor. In your neighborhood, there surely are people homebound, elderly people, perhaps retarded people. Go visit them. I was so pleased the other day in the cathedral. There were two little altar boys, and they had just candles that they were sent around. And I guess the Archbishop worked, and I looked at them carefully, and they were children who had mongoloid features. But there they were. They were right up there doing, how beautiful that was. I have to tell the Archbishop when I see him about it. So, we want to be apostles of mercy. We want to talk about it. Then do merciful things and invite others to be merciful in your own family and among your friends. And someday, perhaps you may have to say in an admonition to a friend or relative, don't you think we should be merciful? Not justice, but mercy. God bless.